On December 19, 2018, inside a private conference room at the Emirates Palace in Abu Dhabi, I sat through a routine government meeting on economic projects. 30 senior officials, ministers, and family members discussed budget figures and tourism plans. I was only half listening. My mind kept returning to the disturbing dreams I had the previous 2 nights. Then, without warning, a presence entered the room. It was so strong that the voices around me faded into the distance. The table, the chairs, the people, they all seemed to dim. Standing directly in front of me was Jesus Christ. He was more real than anything else in that space. His white robe caught light that had no source. His eyes looked straight into me. I froze in my chair. I could not move. I could not speak. Then he spoke my name. Faisal, you have spoken about me without knowing me. Seconds later my legs gave way. I dropped to my knees on the carpet in front of everyone. 30 witnesses stared in shock as a royal prince collapsed without any explanation. My name is Prince Faisal bin Hamad Al Mansouri. I am 38 years old now. 4 days before that meeting, on December 15, 2018, I stood on a stage in the Dubai World Trade Center and spent 45 minutes mocking Jesus Christ in front of 5,000 Muslims. I called him weak. I called him defeated. I said he was unworthy of worship. I was certain I was defending Islam. I believed I was protecting Muslims from dangerous lies. I had no idea that the same Jesus I ridiculed would appear to me in person just 72 hours later. I was born in Abu Dhabi in 1980. My grandfather was one of the men who signed the union agreement that created the United Arab Emirates in 1971. My father served as Minister of Foreign Affairs for more than 2 decades. My mother came from a prominent Saudi family that traces its line back to the guardians of the 2 holy mosques in Mecca and Medina. From the day I was born, I lived inside a world most people cannot imagine. Our family palace in Abu Dhabi had 47 bedrooms. Marble floors stretched for what felt like kilometers. An indoor majlis could seat 200 for prayer or private gatherings. We had a private mosque inside the residence with its own minaret and imam. A dedicated Quran teacher lived with us full-time. He taught me tajweed and tafsir from the age of 4. I memorized large portions of the Quran before I turned 10. Servants handled every daily task. Private jets waited on call. A collection of Rolls-Royces, Bentleys, and Ferraris filled the garages. We owned homes in London, Paris, and Geneva. Yet my parents never allowed wealth to replace faith. Every morning my father gathered us in the majlis before breakfast. He repeated the same words. Faisal, Allah has given us this wealth as a test. We must use it to strengthen Islam. We must never become like the Westerners who worship money instead of God. I believe those words completely. While other wealthy children spend their time on yachts or clubs, I directed my resources toward Islamic causes. I funded mosques in East Africa. I built schools in Indonesia and Pakistan. I supported Dawah centers across Southeast Asia. By 25 I held degrees in politics and Islamic studies from Oxford University. I could debate religion fluently in Arabic, English, and French. I had studied the Bible and the Gospels, not to learn from them, but to find their weaknesses. I felt chosen. Allah had placed me in this position of power and privilege for a purpose. I was meant to defend Islam against its enemies. The main enemy I saw was Christianity. Between 2010 and 2018 I noticed a change in the Gulf. Christian missionaries no longer arrived wearing obvious crosses or carrying stacks of Bibles. They came as business consultants, university lecturers, doctors with NGOs, or engineers on oil contracts. They built friendships. They earned trust. Then, quietly, they shared their faith. Some young Emiratis who had studied in Europe or America returned home asking questions about traditional Islam. A few even converted. These cases troubled me deeply. Living Islam was not just a religious choice. It felt like a betrayal of our Arab identity, our history, and our culture. How could someone born into the wealth and security of the Gulf turn to a faith that seemed so foreign? I began speaking out. I gave lectures at universities in Dubai and Sharjah. I addressed business forums and Islamic conferences across the Emirates. I spoke directly to young professionals. I was not an old imam in a traditional robe. I was a prince who understood the modern world. I had lived in the West. I knew their arguments. I could counter them in ways that connected. My talks gained attention quickly. Young Muslims shared clips online. Religious scholars thanked me. Government officials quietly supported the message because it reinforced Islamic values while keeping the UAE's image as a tolerant, forward-looking nation. I felt I had found my calling. Allah had given me the platform, the education, and the voice to protect the Ummah from Christian influence. Look inside your own heart right now. Have you ever felt certain that your life had a special purpose? That certainty drove everything I did. It led me to create the Fortress of Faith initiative in 2017. I used family funds to build social media campaigns. We produced videos that exposed what we called Christian missionary tactics. We trained young Muslims to respond to common arguments. We brought in former Christians who had converted to Islam to share their stories. Within a year, the initiative reached over 2 million people across the Gulf. The work felt urgent. The threat felt real. I was ready to take the next step. After the success of my early lectures, I decided to take the defense of Islam to a new level. In 2017, I launched what I called the Fortress of Faith initiative. I funded it entirely from my personal resources. The goal was simple: protect young Muslims in the Gulf from Christian missionary influence. We built professional social media campaigns, short videos, infographics, live question and answer sessions. Everything designed to look modern and sharp, not like old religious pamphlets. We highlighted what we saw as common tactics. Christians arriving as language teachers or healthcare workers. Building friendships over months. Then gently introducing Bible stories or inviting people to small home groups. We showed how these methods worked especially well with university students who had studied abroad. Many came back to Dubai or Abu Dhabi with new ideas. They questioned strict interpretations of Islam. Some even met secretly with Christian friends to discuss faith. These cases hit me hard. I knew several young men from prominent families who had started attending underground Christian gatherings. One was the son of a senior official. He had returned from studying engineering in the UK. He told friends privately that he felt Islam was too rigid. He said Christianity offered something personal, something about grace that he had not found in the mosque. When his family discovered it, they cut contact. He left the country quietly. Stories like that made me angry. It felt like an invasion. Not with armies, but with kindness that hid an agenda. The initiative grew fast. Within 12 months, we reached over 2 million people through targeted ads and shares. We ran workshops in universities. We trained students to answer questions about the Trinity or the crucifixion using logic and Quran verses. We brought in speakers who had once been Christian but converted to Islam. They shared personal stories of disappointment with church teachings. The program received quiet support from religious authorities. It fit the UAE's balance, open to the world on business, firm on Islamic identity at home. My public profile rose with it. I was invited to speak at major events. Business summits in Dubai. Youth conferences in Sharjah. Islamic forums in Abu Dhabi. People liked that I was young. I wore modern suits when appropriate. I spoke English fluently. I referenced Western philosophers and scientists to show that Islam answered their questions better than Christianity. I never shouted. I used calm reasoning. That made the message stronger. By late 2018, I felt ready for something bigger. A single event that would reach thousands in person and millions online. I chose the Dubai World Trade Center Grand Hall. It is one of the largest venues in the city. Perfect acoustics. Huge screens. Professional lighting. I booked it for December 15th. I titled the event, Why Islam is Truth and Christianity is Deception. I promoted it heavily. Tickets were free but required registration. Within weeks, 5,000 people signed up. Mostly young professionals. University students. A few business owners. All eager to hear a strong Islamic case presented in a fresh way. I spent months preparing. I read the Gospels again, not for inspiration but to find every weak point. I studied historical criticisms of the Bible. I collected quotes from Christian scholars who admitted textual variations. I interviewed more former Christians. I built a multimedia presentation. Graphs comparing growth rates of Islam and Christianity. Video clips of Western churches closing. Charts showing scientific claims in the Quran. Everything designed to make Christianity look outdated and illogical. The night before the event, I stayed up late. I reviewed my notes one final time. I focused on the section where I would speak directly about Jesus. I wanted those words to be sharp, memorable. I prayed extra rak'ahs. I asked Allah to use me as His instrument to protect the Ummah from falsehood. I felt no fear, only certainty. I believed this was my moment. The divine purpose I had sensed since childhood was about to reach its peak. I had no idea that the Jesus I planned to attack so publicly was about to respond in a way I could never predict. December 15, 2018 arrived. The Dubai World Trade Center Grand Hall was packed. 5,000 people filled every seat. Most were young professionals and university students from across the Emirates. They had registered weeks in advance. The event title glowed on massive screens in Arabic and English: Why Islam is Truth and Christianity is Deception. Camera crews positioned around the room. Live stream links were shared on social media. The atmosphere felt charged. People talked in low voices, waiting for the program to start. I arrived early. I wore the traditional Emirati kandura in crisp white cotton, with the black agol and gotra arranged precisely. The outfit marked my royal status and cultural authority. As I stepped onto the stage, the crowd rose. Applause rolled through the hall. Flashes from phones and professional cameras lit up the front rows. I stood at the podium and waited for the sound to settle. Then I began. I started by building a connection. I spoke about my years at Oxford. I mentioned my travels through Europe and America. I explained how living in the West had only strengthened my commitment to Islam. I have seen their world, I told them. I have studied their ideas. I have debated their scholars. I can say with complete certainty that Islam is the truth. Christianity rests on contradictions and historical errors. The audience responded immediately. Applause broke out. Voices shouted, Allahu Akbar. The energy fed me. I knew the live stream reached far beyond the hall. Millions of Muslims across the Gulf and beyond were watching. This was my chance to deliver a clear, modern defense of Islam. I moved into the arguments point by point. I addressed the Trinity first. How can 1 equal 3? I asked. Even a child understands that 1 plus 1 plus 1 makes 3. Yet Christians insist God is 3 persons in one being. This is not logic. This is confusion presented as mystery. Laughter spread through the rows. People clapped. I felt the room move with me. Next came original sin. I explained that the idea of punishing all humanity for Adam's mistake made God unjust. Allah forgives directly, I said. He does not require a blood sacrifice to change his mind. That concept belongs to ancient pagan rituals, not to the pure monotheism of Islam. Then I turned to the crucifixion. I questioned why an all-powerful God would need to die to forgive sins. If Allah wills something, it happens, I said. He does not depend on a dramatic event. He simply forgives. The crowd nodded. Many took notes on their phones. I saved the stronger section for last. I shifted my tone. I let contempt enter my voice. Now let us talk about Jesus himself, I said. Christians claim he is God in human form, the creator of the universe walking among men. But look at what their own gospels actually show. I described his birth. He arrives as a helpless baby, dependent on his mother for milk, needing his nappies changed. Is this your God, Christians? A God who cries and soils himself? The hall erupted in laughter. Some people covered their mouths. Others recorded the moment. I continued. We see him tired and hungry. He needs food and rest. We see him weep at his friend's grave. This is a man who cannot control death, yet you call him divine. We see him sweat blood in fear before his arrest. He begs God to spare him from the cross. And then he dies, helpless, abandoned, killed by Roman soldiers. He cries out that God has forsaken him. I paused. The silence hung for a second. Then I pointed to the large screens behind me. Images appeared. Artistic renderings of Jesus on the cross. Close-ups of the nails. The crown of thorns. The blood. Look at your God, I said. Hanging there. Bleeding. Dying. Defeated. This is the one you say created the universe. This is the one you believe holds power over life and death. He could not even save himself from a wooden cross. The audience exploded. People stood. They cheered. They waved their hands. Some had tears from laughing so hard. The live stream chat filled with comments praising my courage. I pressed further. I mocked communion and baptism. I quoted statistics showing Christianity declining in the West while Islam grew. I shared stories of former Christians who found truth in Islam. I closed with words I had rehearsed many times. I stand here today not only as a prince of the UAE, but as a defender of truth. Christianity has had 2,000 years to prove itself. It has failed. Its teachings contradict reason. Its scriptures have been altered. Its central figure died helplessly on a cross. Islam is the final message. The corrected truth. There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. Jesus was a prophet, nothing more. Those who worship him as God commit the greatest sin. The hall rose to its feet. Applause thundered. People chanted Islamic phrases. I walked off the stage feeling invincible. I had delivered the strongest presentation of my life. Religious leaders shook my hand. Government officials offered quiet congratulations. Social media clips spread quickly. Hashtags praised my defense of Islam. I spent the rest of the evening at a private gathering. Everyone told me I had inspired them. I accepted the praise with a humble nod. Inside I believed I deserved it. That night I returned to my palace in Abu Dhabi. I performed my prayers. I thanked Allah for the platform and the strength to use it. I checked my phone one last time. Views were climbing into the millions. Everything felt perfect. I went to sleep satisfied. No guilt. No doubt. I had mocked Jesus publicly and deliberately. I believed I had done exactly what was required to protect the faith. The praise kept coming for days after the event. Religious leaders sent private messages. Government contacts called to say the speech had strengthened national identity. Clips from the mockery section went viral across Arabic social media platforms. Millions of views. Thousands of shares. People posted screenshots of the cross images with captions praising my boldness. I read every comment. Each one confirmed what I already believed: I had done something important. I had defended Islam in a way that young people could understand and respect. I returned to my normal routine. Meetings. Family obligations. Prayers on time. But 2 nights later, December 17th, everything shifted. I woke at 3:47 in the morning. My heart pounded. Sweat covered my back and chest. I had just come out of the most vivid dream of my life. In the dream I stood alone on the same stage at the Dubai World Trade Center. The 5,000 seats were empty. No applause. No cheers. Just silence. Then I saw a figure in white walking toward me from the far end of the hall. Even in the dream I recognized him immediately. Jesus Christ. The same man I had ridiculed 48 hours earlier. His steps were calm. His eyes fixed on me. I tried to speak. To explain. To defend my words. No sound came out. He reached the stage. He stood directly in front of me. He said nothing. He only looked. The look carried disappointment mixed with something deeper. Something like sorrowful love. I woke gasping. My hands shook for several minutes. I went straight to the bathroom. Made wudu. Prayed 2 rak'ahs of nafil. I told myself it was stress. The event had been intense. The preparation. The crowd. The adrenaline. My mind was processing it all. Nothing more. I went back to bed. I slept fitfully. The next night, December 18th, the dream returned. Sharper. More real. Same empty stadium. Same figure approaching. This time he spoke. His voice was gentle yet carried complete authority. 7 words only. You have mocked what you do not understand. The words repeated in my head even after I woke. I sat up in bed. Heart racing again. I replayed my speech in my mind. I had studied Christianity for years. I had read the texts. I had analyzed them. How could I not understand? Yet the words lingered. They felt different from a normal dream. They felt external. Like someone had spoken them directly to me. I dismissed it again. Bad sleep. Rich food. Pressure from work. I forced myself back to routine. December 19th was a standard government meeting at the Emirates Palace. Quarterly briefing on economic development. Infrastructure. Tourism. Foreign investment. 30 people in the room. Ministers. Senior officials. A few family members. I arrived in my Mercedes. Quran recitation played through the speakers. I tried to focus on the day ahead. I took my seat near the middle of the long table. The Minister of Finance began his presentation. Charts on the screen. Numbers on budget allocation. I listened half-heartedly. My thoughts kept drifting to the dreams. Then it happened. A presence entered the room. Not subtle. Not gradual. Sudden. Overwhelming. The air changed. The voices around me grew distant. Muffled. Like hearing them through water. My field of vision narrowed. The conference table, the people, the projector light, they all seemed to fade into background shadows. In front of me stood Jesus Christ. Fully awake. Eyes open. Mind alert. He was more solid than the chair I sat on. More real than the men discussing budgets. He wore the same white robe from the dreams. Light came from him. Not reflected. Emanated. I could see the weave of the fabric. The texture. His eyes pierced straight through me. No one else reacted. They continued talking. Pointing at slides. Taking notes. But I was frozen. Unable to move. Unable to look away. He spoke. His voice reached only me. Clear. Calm. Authoritative. Faisal, you have spoken about me without knowing me. You have judged me without understanding me. You have mocked my love without experiencing it. I am not who you think I am. I am not weak because I chose to suffer. I am not defeated because I chose to die. I am not helpless because I chose to surrender. Power that controls others is not true power. Love that refuses to sacrifice is not true love. I wanted to argue. To list my arguments. To quote my Oxford notes. To remind him of the Trinity's logical problems. No words formed. Every point I had made on stage felt small. Childish. In his presence they dissolved. He continued. You think you defended God by attacking me. But I am God. You think you honored truth by spreading lies about me. But I am truth. You think you served Allah by rejecting me. But no one comes to the Father except through me. Then he did something I will carry for the rest of my life. He raised his hands. He pulled back his robe slightly at the side. I saw the scars. Nail marks in the palms. The wound in his side. The marks I had mocked as proof of weakness. Now they looked like the strongest thing I had ever seen. He had accepted them willingly. Not because he lacked power. But because love demanded it. In that moment I understood. A God who stays distant from human pain is not greater. He is less. The willingness to enter suffering made him infinitely more holy. The vision lasted perhaps 60 seconds. When it ended, I realized I had fallen from my chair. I was on my knees on the carpet. The room had gone silent. 30 faces stared at me. Concern. Confusion. Someone asked, "Your Highness, are you all right?" Another said, "Should we call a doctor?" I could not answer. My throat closed. How could I explain? I managed a weak gesture. "I need air." 2 officials helped me up. They led me to the terrace overlooking the Arabian Gulf. The sun was bright. Palm trees moved in the breeze. The water sparkled. Everything looked normal. But my world had just split in two. I stood there alone. Shaking. Trying to breathe. Jesus Christ had appeared to me. Not in a dream. In waking reality. He had spoken. He had shown me the scars. He had answered every mockery I had thrown at him. And he had done it with love. I stayed on that terrace for a long time. The Gulf breeze moved across my face. The sun stayed bright. Everything outside looked the same. Inside me nothing would ever be the same again. I had met Jesus Christ. Not as a historical figure. Not as a prophet in the way Islam described. As the living God. He had spoken to me. He had shown me the scars. He had answered every word of mockery I had thrown at him 4 days earlier. And he had done it without anger. With love that felt stronger than any power I had ever known. I returned to the palace that afternoon. I locked myself in my private study. I could not pray the Salat. The words felt empty. The direction toward Mecca suddenly seemed incomplete. I took out a Bible I had kept for research purposes. I opened the Gospel of John. I read slowly. When I reached chapter 14, the word stopped me cold. "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." Those words struck like a hammer. For 38 years I had believed I could reach God through my own efforts. Prayers. Fasting. Pilgrimage. Good deeds. Generosity with wealth. Defense of the faith. Now Jesus claimed he was the only path. Either he lied, which felt impossible after what I had experienced, or he spoke the truth. If he spoke the truth, then everything I had built my life around was false. I cried. Not quietly. Deep, shaking sobs. The kind that come when a lifetime of certainty collapses. I knew what I had to do next. The following morning, December 20th, I made the call I never thought I would make. I contacted Pastor James Carter, a British man who led a small Christian fellowship in Dubai. I had known about his group for years. My Fortress of Faith team had monitored it. Sent people to observe meetings. Reported back on attendance. When I told him who I was, there was a long silence on the line. My speech was still circulating widely. Clips of me mocking Jesus were everywhere. Finally he spoke. "Your Highness, how can I help you?" My voice trembled. 4 days ago I stood in front of 5,000 people and ridiculed Jesus Christ. Yesterday he appeared to me. In person. I need to know how someone like me can be forgiven. Another pause. Then he said, "The same Jesus who met Saul on the road to Damascus while he persecuted the church has met you. There is nothing you have done that his grace cannot cover. Can we meet today?" We met that afternoon in a private room I rented under a different name. For 3 hours he answered my questions. He explained the cross not as defeat but as victory. God became man not because he was weak, but because only God could pay the price for sin. Jesus did not die because he lacked power. He died because love required sacrifice. The resurrection proved death could not hold him. Everything I had mocked suddenly made sense. That evening, alone with Pastor Carter as my witness, I gave my life to Jesus Christ. I confessed my pride, my mockery, my blindness. I accepted him as Lord and Savior. The moment the words left my mouth, peace flooded me. The same overwhelming presence I had felt in the conference room returned. every burden lifted. Every false certainty disappeared. I felt forgiven. Completely. Totally. I cried again, this time with gratitude. The cost arrived quickly. That night I asked my father for a private meeting. When I told him what had happened, his face changed from confusion to rage. You have betrayed your family, your faith, your country. You are no longer my son. Within hours my mother refused my calls. My siblings were instructed to cut contact. Family lawyers informed me that my trust funds were frozen. My positions in family businesses were terminated. The palace residence was no longer mine. The government acted quietly but firmly. I was removed from all official roles. Why the UAE does not execute people for apostasy? Security officials warned me of real threats from extremists. They suggested I leave the country for my safety. My social media accounts were compromised and deleted. Former colleagues and friends treated me as if I had died. Some held symbolic funeral prayers for the Muslim prince they once knew. In January 2019 I left the UAE. I moved to London. Pastor Carter connected me with a church that supported converts from Islam. I met other Arabs who had lost everything for the same reason. In March I met Elizabeth, a British Christian woman who worked with ministries helping refugees and converts. She saw me not as a fallen prince, but as a brother in Christ. We married in a small ceremony in September 2019. In June 2020 Pastor Carter asked if I would share my story publicly for the first time. I spoke to about 200 people in a church in Dubai. Most were expatriate Christians and secret believers. I stood before them and said, 2 years ago I spent 45 minutes mocking Jesus in front of 5,000 Muslims. Today I spend my life telling everyone that He is Lord. Since then more than 150 Muslims have reached out to me privately. Many attended my original speech. They were stunned to learn I had become a Christian. Some have accepted Christ after hearing how He revealed Himself to me. I now work with an international ministry that supports Muslims exploring Christianity. We address the same objections I once raised. We answer the same questions I once used to attack the faith. The prince who mocked Jesus before thousands no longer exists. In his place is a follower of Christ who shares the gospel he once tried to destroy. I lost a royal title, a vast inheritance, family approval, social status. But I gained eternal life, peace that does not depend on my performance, love that is given freely, a relationship with the true and living God. Jesus met me on December 19, 2018, at 10:34 in the morning, in a conference room in Abu Dhabi. That moment divided my life forever. Before Him I had everything the world values and nothing that lasts. After Him I lost everything the world values and gained everything that matters. The same Jesus who appeared to me is calling you right now. Not through a vision. Not through a dramatic sign. Through this story you are reading at this very moment. He knocks at the door of your heart. He offers the same forgiveness He gave me. The same transformation He worked in my life. The same hope that changed everything. I mocked Him publicly, deliberately, completely. Yet He forgave me totally. If He can do that for me, He can do it for you. No matter what you have done, no matter what you have believed, do not wait for a supernatural meeting. He has already revealed Himself through His word, through His people, and through stories like mine. The prince who dropped to his knees in shock now kneels in worship. The question is not whether Jesus is real. The question is whether you will meet Him today.